awesome. I'm thrilled. I'm going to, since I did chapter 1 on a video, and most of you have seen it, I'm going to actually read chapter 18, which is the beginning of part 2 of 15 Men on a Dead Man's Chest. So for everyone who listened to chapter 1 or saw that and said, "There's no pirates here," this is where the pirates come into. So, chapter 18, Captain Javier Ortega. The waters churned, dark and dangerous, their surface broken only by the imposing silhouette of the Trefoils Rebellion, a terrifying conglomeration of wood, fiberglass, and metal that'd make any shipwright vomit on sight. The ship groaned, long meant to be retired, but somehow still holding together as if sheer defiance kept her afloat. On her deck, Captain Javier Ortega stood tall, his figure cutting a menacing outline. His braided beard swayed, strands of silver woven into his dark hair. The iridescent blue peacock feather of his hat fluttered in the wind. Ortega wore pre-cataclysm relics mixed with more contemporary garb. An armored plate covered his chest, scorched but still gleaming, held together with straps of leather and adorned with forgotten insignia. His gauntlet on his left hand flexed like fabric, yet no blade could cut it. Long-lost technology scavenged from the ruins of a previous world. And yet, for all his armor and technological advancements, he remained every inch the pirate. His long navy coat trimmed in gold with large brass buttons billowed. His cutlass at his side, an evil-looking blade forged more to terrify than to cut. A ragged edge gleamed along the black blade that hung at his hip. In his holster across his chest sat his prized possession, a pre-cataclysm revolver. The black 9-shot cap-and-ball pistol survived where other complicated firearms failed. Clean, oiled, and mechanically perfect for killing. They'd spent the better part of a year hunting rumors, following whispered tales from shipwrecked sailors, traders, and dying old men about a treasure hidden under the sea. 15 empty hammocks swayed below deck, a constant reminder of what this quest already cost. Ortega still saw their faces in his dreams, Adibwe, Maddox, Scratch. "Captain," called Lyra Dunn. The first mate was at the prow, her brow furrowed. Sails on the horizon, westward. Ortega turned, peering into the distance. A dark shadow moved along the fading light of the setting sun. Too far to make out details, but it was their quarry. The seas were empty more often than not, save for scavengers and other pirates. Rare was the sight of a pleasure cruiser or a fisherman's trolley. Lyra stepped beside him, her mismatched eyes glinting in the dim light. One flesh, one metal. "Orders, Captain?" Ortega took a deep breath. "Bring us around, raise the colors, man the cannons." He turned, his coat billowing as he strode back across the deck. "Ready the men. We're not going to wait to find if they're going to come peacefully." The crew stirred into action, men and women moving with the precision of a well-oiled machine. "Keep her steady, Nadir," Ortega shouted over to the helmsman. He watched the distant ship, his mind calculating, his fingers itching to grip the hilt of his sword. They were closing the distance fast. As the Trefoils Rebellion neared the other ship, the details came into sharper focus. A sloop, the sails tight as drums, the rigging struggling to hold together as the sails threatened to run away with or without the ship. The sloop moved with speed away from the much larger Trefoils Rebellion. "They've spotted us," Lyra said. "They're trying to outrun us." "Let them try," Ortega raised his voice to address the crew. "Ready the hooks. If they want to flee, we'll make sure they have nowhere to go." The crew roared in response, moving to their stations. An old mortar, rusted but functional, was dragged into place. Harpoons, grapples, and other anchors, and old anchors salvaged from the wreckage of ships were dumped into the mouth of the mortar, all tied to large ropes secured to docking cleats. "Fire!" The deafening roar of the mortar rocked the ship as they launched scraps at the escaping craft. The anchors and grapples hooked onto the ship, and the ropes pulled taut against the cleats. The distance shrank. The smaller ship, though nimble, couldn't hope to outrun the Trefoils Rebellion. Ortega watched as its crew scrambled on deck, struggling to chop the ropes and remove the grapples. "Boarding party," Ortega commanded. Ropes flew across the gap between the two ships, and Ortega led the charge himself, his sword swinging as he leapt onto the enemy deck. The crew followed, pouring out onto the smaller ship in a storm of blades and gunfire. The battle was short but brutal. Ortega's crew, hardened by years of scavenging and survival, made quick work of the opposition. The ship's defenders fell one by one, and soon the deck was littered with bodies. Ortega stood at the center of the chaos, examining the scene. The crew surrendered, those still alive dropping their weapons, but Ortega wasn't interested in mercy. "Where is your captain?" A man, bloodied and trembling, pointed toward the cabin at the rear of the ship. Ortega wasted no time, storming towards the door and kicking it open. Inside, the captain of the smaller ship sat at a rickety table, smug grin on his face despite the blood on his hands. "I want the key," Ortega said, holding out his hand as if expecting the captain to hand it over. "I've heard the same tales you have, Ortega, but you'll never find it. You didn't even know what you're looking for." Ortega's eyes narrowed. "I don't need to know, as long as someone does." The man's grin widened, and he broke out into song. "The treasure beneath the sea cannot be touched by you or me. Only a ship of miniature size has any hope of reaching the prize." He laughed in Ortega's face while slapping his thigh. Ortega failed to see the humor. Ortega's sword flashed and the room fell silent. Fresh, warm blood splattered the small cabin with a scent of iron. Ortega stood over the lifeless body of the rival captain, his sword dripping blood. He wiped the blade on the man's coat and sheathed it with a metallic clink. Behind him, Lyra Dunn stepped into the cabin, her eyes scanning the cramped room. "No sign of the key, Captain." She kicked open a half-open chest with her boot. "Just junk." Ortega narrowed his eyes, studying the dead captain's desk. Papers, torn maps, and scattered coins littered the surface, but nothing stood out, no clues, nothing to point him toward the next step in his hunt. He turned, glancing at the trembling first mate of the captured ship, still held at gunpoint by Ortega's crew outside. "Bring him in," Ortega ordered. A moment later, a wiry man with sunken eyes and a deep scar across his face was shoved into the cabin. He stumbled, fear etched across his features as he caught sight of the captain's body slumped in the corner. "Please," the man said, his voice cracking. "I didn't want this. I told him it was madness to challenge you, Captain Ortega." Ortega moved with deliberate slowness, circling the man like a predator. "You should have listened to your gut. Now you're going to tell me everything your captain knew about the treasure, and you're going to tell me where to find the key." He didn't talk much, the man stammered. "We were following rumors, same as you. We heard it was locked away in the sea, but..." His eyes darted to the dead captain and back to Ortega. Ortega leaned closer, his gaze unwavering. "Donde está?" The man trembled under the power of Ortega's presence. There's an old fort to the east of Puerto Rico, past the Virgins. That's where it's said to be kept, but no one's been there in centuries. The place is a death trap, cursed, they say, full of monsters, but that's where your key is." Ortega's lips curled into a cold smile. "Monsters and curses don't bother me, only fools who believe in such things." "Give him quarter," Ortega said. "Quarter in the sea. If he can swim back home, he can live a long life." Two shirtless and muscled sailors hauled the prisoner from the cabin, leaving Ortega and Lyra alone with the dead captain. The room fell silent, save for the comforting slosh of waves against the hull, punctured by the man's desperate cries. "Please, I told you everything." His voice grew fainter as they dragged him away. "I have children. Mercy." The pleading dissolved into unintelligible shrieks that ended abruptly with a heavy splash. "You think it's true, then?" Lyra asked, crossing her arms. "About the key?" Ortega stepped over to the captain's desk and rifled through. "It doesn't matter if it's true or not. There's a treasure down there, and no force field is going to stop me. If this key is the way in, then we'll find it. And if not," he trailed off, a dark grin creeping across his face, "then we'll find another way." "You've already lost 15 men, sir. Maybe the key is worth exploring." Ortega continued rifling through the other captain's quarters. He found a plug of tobacco next to a golden dagger in one of the desk drawers. Ortega pocketed both. He found half a bottle of rum in the bottom drawer, uncorked it, took a swig, and passed it to Lyra, who sucked on it like a baby bottle. "Tell the crew they can take what they want, then burn the wreck. We sail north to Blood Harbor before setting off for this fort. I want to be well provisioned if we're heading into hell." Nice.
Sail away. away. Hey, 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 to the bay.